He told her, "You're embarrassing us. Your car, your life, everything." But when she opened the garage, silence hit harder than any insult. This is the true story of a woman they dismissed, until the truth parked right in front of them. If you've ever been underestimated by your own family, tell us in the comments. This one's for you. Eva, that car is embarrassing. Marcus snapped the moment I stepped out of the Camry, a sentence sharp enough to slice through the spring air and my patience. The wind smelled faintly of lavender and lawn chemicals. Monterey Hills Golf Club, with its circular drive and gleaming stone facade, stretched behind him like a private shrine to upper crust perfection. Marcus stood there in his pressed slacks and smug grin, leaning against his matte black Porsche Panamera like it was an extension of his self-worth. I closed the Camry door with deliberate calm. "It's a car, Marcus. It gets me here." He laughed, one of those dry, performative laughs that made sure nearby brunch goers could hear. "And a microwave from 2016 still heats food, but we don't bring it to brunch." Before I could reply, a door clicked shut behind me. Ava Victoria purred, stepping out of her champagne-colored Tesla in a cascade of Hermes silk and curated self-satisfaction. "If you insist on driving that thing, at least park it around the back." I turned slightly. "Nice to see you too." "You know how it looks," she said, lips barely moving under oversized sunglasses. "To clients, to friends, to Dad's golf buddies." I didn't answer. Instead, I took in the scene, the line of luxury cars, the valet whispering into a walkie-talkie, the white linen napkins already being unfolded on the terrace above. A brunch for the blessed or those who needed to appear so. Inside, the club hummed with quiet money. Polished wood, muted laughter glasses chiming in rhythm with soft piano music. I followed Marcus and Victoria up the steps toward the reserved table by the terrace railing where my parents waited with matching monogrammed polos and expressions that could have been carved from granite. "You're late," Dad said, not looking up from his Bloody Mary. "I had a rollout this morning." "System updates," I said as I slid into the only remaining chair, the one opposite them, like a defendant. Mom leaned in, her tone dipped in concern and pity. "You're still doing that little education startup, sweetheart." "It's not little," I replied evenly. "And it's not a startup anymore." Victoria smirked. "Eva runs online babysitting for underfunded kids. It's cute." Marcus chuckled. "You'd make more renting that house of yours on Airbnb. It's a home, not an investment vehicle." "A depreciating one," he muttered into his mimosa. I bit back the sigh. Every brunch was a performance, and I wasn't cast in their version of success. My role was the cautionary tale. What happens when you don't chase money loudly enough? "I saw your LinkedIn." Mom said gently, like a bandage over a bruise. "It hasn't changed in a while." "I've been working." "On what?" Dad asked, finally raising his eyes. "A platform for adaptive education systems. We just finished a major pilot." Marcus rolled his eyes. "So, not real revenue?" I stared at him. "We're scaling, which means we're busy." Victoria waved a hand dismissively. "She means not profitable. Yet." Laughter tickled the edge of the table. I looked past them to the golf course, manicured, untouchable. Just like them. All my life they'd been loud about their wins. I had learned to move in silence. But something inside shifted. I wasn't absorbing today. I was calculating. "You know what?" I said, pushing back my chair slightly. The fork in Victoria's hand paused midair. "If you're all free after this, follow me home. I want to show you something." They blinked, what Marcus asked. "Just follow me, right after brunch." Victoria laughed. "Eva, if you finally remodeled that sad little kitchen, lead the way, darling," she said, tapping her Tesla key fob with theatrical flourish. Marcus leaned back, amused. This should be entertaining. The procession of privilege followed me up the hill, Tesla, Porsche, Audi, all trailing my quiet Camry like wolves circling what they thought was prey. The climb into Carmel Crest was gentle but deliberate, winding through old oaks and stone retaining walls. Here the houses didn't scream for attention, they whispered legacies. Mine, a white colonial with navy shutters that had weathered a few too many seasons, sat at the bend of a cul-de-sac like it was hiding something. Victoria's Tesla rolled to a stop behind me, followed by Marcus's Porsche and our parents' understated but unmistakably expensive Audi Q8. I stepped out without a word. Still haven't painted the shutters, huh? Victoria said, lifting her sunglasses and surveying the facade with a smirk. Marcus leaned against his car, arms folded. Same trim, same mailbox. No pool in sight. Wow, Ava. At least install a fountain or something. This is Carmel Crest, not a cul-de-sac in Des Moines. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked calmly toward the garage and pressed the remote. The door groaned as it opened, rising like a stage curtain. Sunlight hit polished metal and the air shifted. First, the gunmetal gray of the Aston Martin DBX 707. Sleek, predatory. Then the pristine white Porsche Taycan Turbo S silent luxury with lightning beneath the hood. And finally, the black 1967 Shelby Mustang Fastback, restored to gleaming perfection, its chrome so sharp it seemed to cut the air. Marcus stopped mid-breath. Victoria's hand dropped from her glasses. No one spoke. The quiet was thick disbelief wrapped in silence. Even the birds seemed to pause. "Where did you?" Marcus began, then stopped himself. "Are these real?" I turned toward them, keeping my voice even. "I bought them." "With what monopoly money?" he asked too loudly. "Cash." Victoria blinked. "Eva, are you drug dealing?" I smiled just enough. "Close." The wind picked up the edge of her scarf. Her lips parted, ready to ask again, but I cut in. "AI." Marcus laughed an awkward, sharp burst. "AI as in what, ChatGPT or whatever?" I stepped toward the Mustang, ran a finger along the fender. "Neural bloom." The name hung in the air like a strike of thunder. Marcus flinched, just barely. "That's..." His voice trailed. "That's the platform the Department of Education is piloting, isn't it?" I nodded. "Among others." He looked at the cars again as if seeing them for the first time. "You own Neural Bloom?" I didn't need to answer again. Victoria's tone softened, almost dazed. "You told us you were running some online classes." "I am," I said, walking past them toward the front door. "And funding them myself." Their eyes followed me now, not with ridicule, but with something closer to recognition. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. "Come inside," I said, pausing at the threshold. "There's more you should see." They followed me in with the tentative steps of people realizing they may have grossly underestimated the quietest person in their bloodline. The foyer was quiet, filtered with soft, natural light that glinted off polished floors and muted tones. There were no crystal chandeliers, no gaudy displays, just clean lines and silence, intentional curated, like everything I'd built. We moved past the living room without pause. I didn't offer drinks. No one asked. I led them down a hallway lined with understated frames, degrees research papers, a photo of me in a cap and gown flanked by professors. Another with Alex, my CTO, holding our first patent certificate. A third frame, a snapshot of me shaking hands with the Secretary of Education beneath a Neural Bloom banner. Victoria hesitated before entering the office. Marcus's eyes moved rapidly, cataloging. "This looks like an R&D lab." I settled behind the curved glass desk and tapped a single key. The dual monitor array came to life and the main dashboard opened. Neural Bloom V4.2, Live 2, 10322. Active users, 14 university contracts. 4 government pilots, projected FY revenue 38.6. Current valuation 107.2. Marcus's mouth parted. Jesus. Adaptive AI for education. I said, my tone steady. We build modular systems tailored for schools, corporations, and defense training programs. Built off original models, not recycled APIs. Victoria stepped closer. Wait. That many users were in talks with UNESCO for emerging market deployment. I'm heading to Brussels next month. She turned, slowly scanning the wall of plaques and photos. Her voice was quieter now. This is massive. I opened the bottom drawer and pulled out 2 black envelopes, both thick with gilt trim. I placed them on the desk and pushed them forward with 2 fingers. Last year's gala, I said. I invited both of you. Front row seats. You never responded. Marcus stepped forward. One of the envelopes had a faint crease along the edge. He didn't touch it. I thought it was some fundraiser. It was, I said. We raised $12 million for underserved districts. Victoria blinked. You raised it, I donated it. They stared. Marcus lowered himself into the leather chair across from me. The smugness had drained. What replaced it wasn't quite shame, but something adjacent. Why didn't you tell us? I met his eyes. I did, many times. You just didn't hear it over the sound of your own voice. Silence. The office, despite its technology, felt heavier than any boardroom. My words didn't rise in pitch. I let them land where they needed to. Victoria tilted her head, uncertain. So, you own all of this Neural Bloom and 3 other companies under the same parent. Alex and I founded the first one out of MIT dorms. He handles architecture. I run everything else. And the cars, Marcus asked. I turned to the screen again. Those are hobbies. What matters is what we're building here. The room buzzed softly, the quiet hum of the custom servers lining the back wall. A red light pulsed on the intercom panel as my phone began to vibrate. I didn't rush. I glanced at the screen. Senator Wilcox, direct. I picked up, resting one elbow on the desk. Yes, Senator, I said smoothly. We're confirmed for Q2. Texas, Florida, New York, yes. The rollout's on track. The $38 million is already cleared on our end. Right. Let me know when you want to meet in Austin. I hung up. Marcus looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Was that? Senator Wilcox. National deployment starts next quarter. Victoria exhaled slowly, brushing invisible dust from her sleeve. Ava. I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I replied, standing. They both stood, too out of instinct or uncertainty, I wasn't sure. I walked to the side wall where a frosted glass panel slid open at my touch. Behind it, another room, cool lighting a row of headset sensors, holographic displays. My simulation lab. I turned back to them, one eyebrow raised. Now I said evenly, would you like to see where we test neural simulation for adaptive learning? Or are you ready to go back to brunch? They thought the garage was the climax. It wasn't. The real wound wasn't what they hadn't seen. It was what they had refused to see. The study had returned to stillness after the brief commotion of data and revenue. But as the hum of technology faded, something heavier took its place, the unspoken. I reached for the 2 thick envelopes on the desk and held them out, one in each hand. Do you remember these? Marcus hesitated before accepting his. Victoria followed suit, eyes scanning the gold trim, the elegant calligraphy spelling her name. Wait. Marcus furrowed his brow. You really sent these. With hope, I said, not accusing, just stating a truth that had gone stale from waiting too long. The silence that followed was fragile. I walked over to the window, letting the midday light soften the edge of my voice. I handwrote your names. I coordinated with a violin quartet. The gala was at the Fairmont Black Tie Champagne Towers, keynote from the Deputy Secretary of Education. I kept a table for 4. Only one chair was used. Victoria turned the envelope in her hand as if expecting it to open itself and offer absolution. I don't even remember seeing this, she whispered. You didn't have to remember, I said, still facing the window. You just had to care. I turned back to them. You think this is about the money, the platform, the garage, but the first time I built anything, it was Neural Bloom, and I built it with you both in mind. Marcus opened his mouth, but I was already walking to the shelf. I pulled down a small leather folder and flipped it open, revealing a yellowed printed pitch deck annotated in pen. 3 years ago, I showed this to you. I asked for $50,000 in seed funding. Marcus's eyes widened. You mean... Yes, I said. I pitched Neural Bloom to you over coffee. You laughed and told me, charity tech for poor kids. That's not scalable, not even marketable. Victoria winced. You said it was a cute TED Talk topic. Remember, I added? You told me to do something real, something with metrics and margins, so I did. She looked away. I was being flippant. I didn't mean to. I know I interrupted softly, but I stopped trying to make you proud after that. I just built it anyway. Marcus ran a hand through his hair and dropped into the chair again. You built this in silence. No, I crossed my arms. I built it while you all were loud. No one moved. The room held its breath. Outside, a distant hum grew closer, the sound of rubber against gravel, deliberate and smooth. Through the window, a sleek gray Audi e-tron pulled into the driveway. Victoria looked up. Someone else coming? I glanced at them, my tone shifting just slightly. Perfect timing, I said. Want to meet the guy who believed in neural bloom when nobody else did? Alex shook their hands like a diplomat. The air shifted now, they were the outsiders orbiting a reality they once laughed at. We moved to the back deck where the late afternoon sun stretched long fingers across the teak floorboards. The garden was quiet save for the sound of water trickling from the stone fountain and the rustling of wind through the bamboo hedge. It was the kind of space designed for clarity, not spectacle. Alex didn't need an introduction, but I offered one anyway. Marcus Victoria, this is Alex Park, co-founder and CTO of Neural Bloom. Alex offered a nod, firm handshakes. Pleasure. The way he held himself, grounded, clear-eyed, was different from the theater Marcus always carried. There was no posing, no need to prove. Just a presence earned through work and time. I've read about you, Marcus said, studying Alex. The MIT accelerator, the DoD pilot. You were there at the start? Alex glanced at me and smiled. Eva was the start. I just helped turn the fire into form. We sat on low chairs arranged in a half circle beneath a pergola heavy with blooming wisteria. Victoria, for once, was silent, her phone untouched in her lap. Marcus leaned forward, elbows on knees, searching. You two bootstrapped the whole thing. We rejected 6 VC offers in year 1, Alex said. They wanted control, we wanted focus, kept it lean, mission-driven. Marcus nodded slowly. You're saying you chose to stay small? We chose to stay honest, I replied. Growth came anyway. There was something fragile now in Marcus's posture. A crack in the mirror of certainty he'd polished for years. He looked up. Why didn't you ever correct us? Because you never asked, I said. You just assumed. The silence landed like snowfall, quiet but absolute. Alex's phone buzzed. He excused himself with a respectful nod, stepping down toward the garden path to take the call. His voice drifted back faintly, discussing a beta deployment in rural Arizona. I turned toward Marcus. He exhaled, not defensively this time, just tired. I owe you something. An apology. Or at least acknowledgement. I don't need your apology, I said. I need you to look in the mirror. He nodded. Once. A gesture that for him held more weight than words. I let it hang there. The water kept trickling. A red maple swayed. From the edge of the deck, Victoria had been listening. Not intruding, just watching. She whispered almost too quietly for anyone to hear. Maybe I've been wrong too. A month later, I walked into the same brunch with the same car, not the Camry, but the Aston Martin. Just to be clear, the Monterey Hills Golf Club looked exactly as it had before. Manicured, curated, polished. But the air felt different. As I pulled into the drive, valets moved quicker, glancing discreetly but unmistakably toward the gunmetal curve of the car. And from the terrace, heads turned. Not with disdain this time, with interest. With awareness. Last time, they barely looked at me. This time, they watched the whole walk from the parking lot like a parade. I stepped out in tailored navy slacks and a cream blouse, clean lines, no logos. The only accessory was time. The only flex was presence. I passed the same flower beds, walked under the same white trellis. But it didn't feel like entering their space anymore. It felt like walking into mine. Marcus was already standing when I reached the table. Not in a showy, performative way. Just standing, like he knew it was the right thing to do. Morning, he said. Good morning. Victoria looked up from her phone. You look incredible, Eva. Her tone was soft. There was no edge to it. For the first time in memory, it didn't sound like performance. It sounded like truth. Thank you, I said, taking the same seat as before. This time, no one hesitated to make room. The menu hadn't changed, but the conversation had. There were no passive-aggressive jabs, no performative questions masked as advice. Dad asked about our platform's pilot in Florida. Mom commented on a profile she saw in the Times. Marcus asked real questions about infrastructure. Victoria, quieter than usual, listened more than she spoke. When coffee arrived, I reached into my bag and pulled out a red envelope. I slid it to the center of the table. The paper was textured thick matte. Real weight. A gala, I said simply. Next month. Bigger venue, broader reach. I'd like you to come if you want to. Marcus picked it up first. He didn't joke, just nodded. We'll be there. Dad leaned back slightly. You've made something impressive. I held his gaze. I've made something real. He smiled. Just a little. But it was real too. The rest of brunch moved easily. Laughter came, not forced, not bitter. And when I spoke, they listened. Fully. It wasn't about the car, or the house, or the dashboard metrics. It was about presence. They saw me now. Not the daughter who hadn't arrived fast enough or loudly enough. Just me. And I wasn't hungry for their validation anymore. But now that it had arrived in its quiet, awkward, sincere way, I could let it exist without needing to hold it. As brunch wound down, I pulled out my phone to check the time. A new message blinked on the lock screen. Secretary R. Martin. Ready to go global? I smiled, letting the words settle. Let's begin. What began as silence born of dismissal ended in a room where truth echoed louder than status ever could. The ones who once measured her by appearances were forced to see the empire they refused to acknowledge, not because it shouted, but because it endured. Justice, when built quietly, speaks with precision. Like a fault line waiting for its moment, the rupture came not with rage, but revelation. And perhaps that is the cruelest revenge, not destruction, but undeniable presence. Because no wall of arrogance stands forever against the steady weight of truth.